Hi, this is Cathy Goodwin, and today we're going to look at another aspect of midlife career change. Obstacle number 4. We've looked at other obstacles and other videos that are posted on my channel. Define your dream job. Now, you may be surprised to hear that's an obstacle, because if you look at almost any career book or talk to almost any career consultant, they're going to say the first thing you need to do is figure out exactly what you want to do. I'm going to argue that define your ideal job, if you have that as your goal, that is an obstacle to career change. And here's why. There's really no one best career. There's really no way to say this is the perfect job, this is exactly what I want, for these reasons. First, there's enormous variation across companies and across jobs for any particular career. For instance, if you want to be a teacher, and a lot of people say, yeah, I want to teach, there's a huge variation between high school teaching and college teaching, and certainly more among grade school teaching. And within college teaching, there's really a huge variation depending on where you end up working. I mean, being in a research-oriented school or a school that's in between, depending on whether the school has a lot of commuter students, whether it's a residential campus, your role is going to be dramatically different. Another example is being an accountant. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to be an accountant. You have to sit in an office and crunch numbers. Well, not all accountants do that. Some accountants are very active. They're actually out doing things where they're doing more of a consulting role. They're surrounded by people all the time. They're doing presentations. So the key is not to go by a particular career, because there is a huge variation from one company and from one job description to the other, even within a company. Now, another consideration is that every career is a collection of trade-offs. You have some things you really want and some things that are pretty grim. In many cases, one big yes, something that is really, really valuable to you, can overcome many negative aspects of a career. For instance, for a lot of people, and for me for a long time, travel was a really, really huge part of what I wanted. I just loved to travel. So if I got lots of travel, I would really be willing to overlook many other components to get that. On the other hand, one big no can override many positives. And for many people, that's the same thing, travel. I know many people who will say, I don't care how great the career sounds, if it has any travel component, I'm not going to do it. Another reason is that careers change over time. I've talked to many people who started out in one career field, and then 10 years, 20 years later, the career is not the same. The way they love their jobs, they love their careers when they started, and now it's totally different. For instance, there are many careers where, even as recently as 10 years ago, you would go out and you'd be active in the community, you'd be talking to people, and now you're sitting in front of a computer all day in a dark room by yourself. Finally, every career has an element of serendipity and luck, and finding your career, especially your dream career, almost always comes with an element of serendipity. And the word, some people use those terms interchangeably. Technically, as technical as we can get with a term like serendipity, serendipity really means that when you're looking for A, along the way you find B, or you're looking for something and you find something else. And of course, luck plays a part. Study after study has shown that when people are asked, how did you get into this career, they almost always say, well, it happened as a matter of luck. Maybe they were in a conference and somebody came up to them and said, have you considered X? And they said, X is not such a bad idea. Or maybe they heard about something, maybe and they ran across an opportunity and they were able to take advantage of it. There's a lot of ways that serendipity plays a part. So identifying the one best career at the outset may actually keep you from identifying something through serendipity and luck as you go about your career search. So what do you do instead if you don't identify your one best career? Well, first, I recommend focusing on exploration instead of definition. In other words, use your energy to explore many different opportunities, even if initially they don't seem that great. One of the biggest mistakes I see people making is cutting off options too soon. So let's say you talk to me and I say, you like technical material, you like working with information, and maybe for whatever reason, I say, why don't you look at library science or information science, as it's called now, as a potential career? Well, some people will say, okay, I'll check it out. And those people almost always go on to have a really successful search. Some people say, well, no, they maybe make a call, or some people won't even follow up any suggestions. Now, there are some suggestions that are not worth following up. For example, if I say, well, maybe you could consider consulting, and you say, well, there's no way I can travel. Well, there are some consulting jobs where you don't travel, but let's get real. Most consulting jobs do. So you might be wise to certainly not jump in with both feet and explore consulting jobs. But a lot of times when you get in and start exploring, a couple things happen, because first of all, you discover a lot about the job that you didn't know. But here's the real kicker. Exploring A might lead to B, or C, or D, or even Z. Remember, we said earlier that a lot happens by serendipity. So I had a client who was interested in something relating to technology, systems analysis, and we did talk about library science as a possible career. She said, well, okay, so I'll look into it. So she actually made calls. I happen to know at the time, I don't now, I knew 2 or 3 really nice librarians who agreed to talk to her. When she was finished, she said, I really don't think that's for me, but I got an idea to do something else. And simply the process of exploring, of talking to people, gets the momentum going, and she ultimately did find a new career in a very unexpected situation. I recommend also keeping a hold that thought journal. And I'll explain that. I know that when you go through any kind of transition, coaches and consultants and counselors start saying, keep a journal. So if that turns you off, try a blog or just to scroll something down. But I do recommend making a note of thoughts that come to you along the way. So you might have a thought of, as you talk, I really want to be in a place where I talk to people all day long. Or it's really important to me to be able to sleep late. I'm not a morning person. Or it's really important to me not to be sitting at a desk all day. Write down these thoughts as they come, but don't be locked into them, because you never know. A job might be defined one way, but when you dig deeper, it's actually something completely different. Also, I recommend thinking about a bridge job and also a perch job, and I'll explain what these are. A lot of times clients say, well, I've got to get my dream job, and I'll say, well, why don't you, try this? Oh, no, I cannot do that. It's not exactly what I want. But the reason that you might want to do that is it might be an intermediate step to something else. So, for example, if you are thinking about becoming maybe a consultant on performance improvement, you want to work with companies and maybe work with HR and develop programs for employees to improve their well-being. You might want to start as a coach, as a life coach, and you say, well, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be an entrepreneur and I don't want to work one-to-one. But that may be the case, and you may not want to do it, but that might be a very nice segue, because once you work with people one-to-one, you get a sense of their issues, and once you have coaching experience, it looks good on your resume, and now you have a better opportunity of getting to be in the HR department of a company. And again, I'm making this up. I don't know if that's a realistic career path, and I'm just totally giving you an example of how it might work. A perch job means that you have to put food on the table and pay the mortgage or rent. So you pick some job, any job that you can get. Again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Some people who have perfectly good jobs and who quit either because they're getting physically ill from their job or because maybe they've been laid off, do get perch jobs. And they choose a perch job because the ideal perch job not only pays the bills that are essential, but it gives you time. If you're working 60 to 80 hours a week, you probably don't have time to do a career search. So it might make sense to have a perch job that is temporary, only because it pays the bills and because it gives you time to look. Now, here's the kicker. Perch jobs can lead to a whole new career, and I'll give you a couple of examples. I knew someone once who was a lawyer, and this is a true story. I'll disguise some of the details. She couldn't get a job as an attorney because there are various issues with how she hadn't gotten into the field right away. Her background was unusual for a new lawyer, and for law firms wouldn't touch her. She loved the law, and she was heartbroken. But in the meantime, she had to make money, and her family said, look, you get a job or else. So she got a job as in a financial organization. As initially she was some kind of an associate, and she was doing not really clerical work, but it wasn't very, very strong. But the company was very good, and they encouraged her to keep up her legal credentials, and it was in an area of a financial firm involving, I think it was trusts and estates, where there was some legal component. Initially, she was very resistant. She said, I'm not a numbers person. I don't like this. I'm not going to stay. And she kept looking, but then she kind of got hooked. And one day she got promoted, and then next thing you know, she's a vice president. And then she was quite marketable. She ended up at a whole different institution in a very senior position, doing very, very well. And she actually decided she really liked it. And she was getting skills that she could use to do things that she originally thought she'd only get by being a certain type of lawyer. So you never know. And this is absolutely true, again, with a few details disguised. And my own story is I had been working for a company, and then things kind of fell apart in one job, and things changed, and they gave me some funds, and I moved to a new place, and I started teaching at a very, how can I say this, a very kind of oddball type school. And I had always been interested in teaching. I had done some when I was getting my MBA, but I was just teaching a course or two as an adjunct, which is like a part-time, not very good deal. And I, started doing that. And then I said, this is where kind of something I've always thought about doing. So I think I'm going to go back and get a Ph.D., which I did at a nearby university, UC Berkeley. I was in the Bay Area. And then I went on and had full-time academic jobs. I was tenure track for 20 some odd years. And it turned out to be extremely rewarding. I got tons of travel, which I liked. It was lucrative. Business school professors, at least at that time, were paid extremely well. So it was a very satisfying change. But it came about because I started with a job that was just going to be a perch job, just to tide me over. So again, you don't know what's going to happen. The only thing you can do wrong is to do nothing and say, I'm not going to do that because it's not exactly what I want. And again, because a lot of times you will be advised to be very careful and don't do anything to find what you really want. But a lot of times you don't know what you want till you're doing it or till you're really face to face with it. So if you want additional resources, I always like to recommend some. Of course, my own website, midlifecareerstrategy.com. Tons of resources there. If you'd like to set up a session, this is usually almost always, the way we start any kind of consulting relationship or any type way I work with people. We have a career session where we spend quite a bit of time together. It's not just one session. I look at material ahead of time, and there's some follow-up with email, and we actually go through and decide where you are in your situation and what are some of the most realistic next steps and what you can do. Many people find that this is all they need. Some people do want to go on to monthly consulting, but many people say this is it. One consultation is enough to give them a blueprint for action. I also have an ebook on Amazon about how to choose your career without tests or crystal balls. It's at this email address, and people tell me that it's been helpful to them. So I want to thank you very much for joining me on this video. I look forward to seeing you again on future videos, and I wish you the very best of luck with your career search wherever it may take you.